Good morning and happy 2021, everyone. I hope that you and your friends and family are well and that the communities are beginning to see the light at the end of the COVID-19 tunnel out there. This is a milestone moment for Yiftee, and we'd like to welcome the more than 80 people who have registered for this webinar. We have a Yiftee community only audience, meaning all of you are associated with a community card or a marketplace. And I believe I've personally Zoomed or somehow demoed with every single one of you. So hello and welcome. Yiftee posted a press release earlier this week that you might have seen. You have helped us grow to over 200 towns, cities, neighborhoods, downtowns, main streets all across the country. 170 of those were added since the pandemic started. You all took a chance on an ambitious team of unknowns, added a healthy dose of your own entrepreneurial spirit, and rallied your communities. Between us all, we delivered 284,000 cards worth $13.6 million, all going exclusively to your local businesses. Between our biggest day was December 22nd. Gift cards are great for the procrastinators. And we delivered 6,613 cards on that one day. Out of the nightmare of 2020, there have been some truly bright spots. And one of them is how we've seen people really rally to support their local businesses. There are so many great stories out there, and I hope to be able to feature more of you on this webinar series and share what we're learning as we go, because we're all kind of making this up as we go. Today, we're kicking off the webinar series with 3 amazing communities who ran some very exciting programs just this November and December. They all managed to raise a significant amount of federal funding from the CARES Act and then multiply that with consumer purchases. They will share how they did it. It's possible that additional federal funding could become available with the new administration, and perhaps your communities can benefit from the trails that they have blazed. We have a lot to cover, so I will ask you to post your questions in the Q&A on the bottom. There's a little talking blurb at the bottom there that says Q&A. Just put your questions in there, and we'll hopefully be able to get to some of those at the end of the hour. Many of you have met Raquel, who's here with us, and she is going to monitor that and pick out a few questions to answer. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to my distinguished panelists and let them do the rest of the talking. It is my pleasure to introduce Mark Wolf from Boulder, Colorado, Derek Long and Sandy Ward from Whatcom County, Washington, and AJ Baines and Andrew Federick from Erie County, New York. Mark, could you start us off by describing your community, its demographics, and your ComCard program?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks for the invite, and thanks for everybody joining. Good morning, good afternoon to some. We were really excited by our partnership with Yiftee, scrambled to get the program up and running by Small Business Saturday this last year. I'm the Senior Manager of Economic Vitality and Business Services for the City of Boulder. Economic development for most of the world, economic vitality in the City of Boulder. We did a number of things to respond to COVID to try and help our local economy. Most of that was funded through the CARES Act and our local allocation. I know we'll get into the details of funding a bit later. Our city is about 106,000 people, mostly urban. We designed our program as a part of what we call the retail SOS. We ran a couple different programs, some targeted at restaurants, some targeted directly at our retail community. So our gift card program in Boulder was focused on our small retailers. So it was a little bit more limited than others. We ended up having 110 merchants sign up, which was an excellent response for us. We had set aside about $125,000 of CARES Act dollars for primarily the gift cards, some of the administration costs, and launched, like I said, on Small Business Saturday, and we were out of funding within 6 days. So the community response was incredible, and we know folks still bought gift cards even after the match program was done. So we were really excited and happy to talk in more detail as we go around the horn.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Sandy and Derek, you guys want to describe what you did in Whatcom County?
Sure. So I'll kick it off. I'm Sandy Ward with Bellingham Whatcom County Tourism. And along with our economic development partners, including Sustainable Connections, who will talk in just a minute about how the program worked, but I'll let you know where we are. Bellingham and Whatcom County are in the upper left-hand corner of the continental United States. You can't get any farther to the north or the west or the left up here in Whatcom County. And so we are on the Canadian border. Andrew, you guys are probably also in a similar situation with Canada being nearby. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So among other things, you know, we're a tourism destination, and we have been recognized by Forbes and Condé Nast and Single Tracks and Canoe and Kayak and National Geographic as one of the coolest small towns, most beautiful places in the Pacific Northwest, the most snow for skiing, 55 feet, you guys. And we have more beer per capita, more beer, craft beer per capita than any other county in the nation. So we have 225,000 residents in Whatcom County. Bellingham is the largest city with about 90,000 residents. We have 3 higher education institutions here: Western Washington University, which I believe is the northernmost university in the continental United States. We have a technical college and a community college. We also have an international airport with air service to Phoenix, Oakland, Los Angeles, San Diego, Palm Springs, Las Vegas, and seasonally to Tucson and Anchorage, Alaska. So we're just primely located, but the Canadian border is the big deal. And as the DMO, that's the Destination Marketing Organization, or the Convention and Visitor Bureau, we normally don't talk to our local audience because we're looking for people who are coming from far enough away that they have to spend the night in commercial lodging, because that's where the money comes from. But when COVID hit and the Canadian border closed, we were trying to think of how to keep our local businesses in business so that when COVID was over, we had something left to promote. And so we started looking at ways to get through recovery. And I found the Yiftee card, because we were thinking of it to create packages for visitors once we were getting to recovery. And then it dawned on me that maybe we would, while we wait, we could do a local campaign. And so this is where Sustainable Connections comes in, because they had been operating a Think Local First, Buy Local campaign for 18 years. And so I'll let Derek talk to you about the partnership that we entered into with all of our local chambers and other economic development agencies in Whatcom County.
Thanks, Sandy. Derek Long, I'm the Executive Director of Sustainable Connections. Also one of the co-founders. We've been around about 18 years. We have a variety of programs in economic development, environmental sustainability, social well-being, a triple bottom line kind of business organization. We have 30 employees working in food and farming, energy, green building. It's quite diverse, but one of our longest standing programs is Think Local First, promoting the benefits of shopping with locally owned businesses and the benefits of local businesses. And yeah, we launched on November 24th. It was fast, and Yiftee was super responsive. We have a huge Think Local First marketing effort, with the Yiftee program being part of that marketing effort. And on November 24th, we launched some BOGO offers with Yiftee, $10 on 25 purchase, $20 on $50 purchase, $40 bonus on $100 purchase. And the money was going fast. And so we had to turn, I think like 6-7 days later, we had to turn off the 40 on 100 because it was just draining our limited budget too quickly. Meanwhile, as the results are going, we're frantically raising money to keep the pool full. And yeah, we ended up, well, I think Donna's going to share some of the numbers, but it's been a terrific response. We ended up having to turn off all BOGO offers on the day before your biggest sales day ever, Donna. So on the 21st, I think our pool of funding was down below $300 and we had to just turn it off. And we're covering transaction fees. Yeah, we'll get into the source of, I see a chat function of where the BOGO money came from, but I think that's a good opening summary, I think.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay, Andy and AJ.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Andy Federick. I am the Senior Economic Development Specialist for Erie County. I work out of the County Executive's Office. I work in coordination with our Department of Environment and Planning, our Department of Public Works, our Industrial Development Agency, and just along with other economic development organizations and chambers of commerce on a variety of economic development and business issues. Erie County is a part of the Western New York region, as west as you can get in New York State. So I know a lot of times when people hear New York, they think New York City, obviously. We are 8 hours away from New York City. So we are on the other side of the state, literally. We are on Lake Erie. And we are also on the border of Canada, Ontario, Canada. So that also plays a big role in our economy, as Sandy was describing for theirs as well. We are a county of 919,000. We have a pretty balanced mix of rural and urban. Buffalo, city of Buffalo being the population center, with the inner ring suburbs around it, also containing a large majority of our population. But then as you go south of the city and south of the city of Lackawanna, we have a extensive rural part of our county, ski country, or the South Towns as we call them. And then farther west in the county, we also have a rural component there as well. So we really do have a strong balance of both urban communities and rural, which also, you know, lends itself to kind of our kind of diverse economy. You know, for a long time, Erie County, Buffalo was, you know, I'm sure you still hear on TV, if you watch football or the Bills, it's blue collar, it's that old Rust Belt manufacturing. And manufacturing, advanced manufacturing still plays a giant role in our economy, but we've certainly diversified, you know, since those mid 20th century days when, you know, manufacturing started to disappear to that extent. So manufacturing is a big industry, but the healthcare industry is a big industry, as well though as retail and restaurants and hospitality has become a very big industries, and tourism. And I know some people probably think, oh, Buffalo, New York, and cold and the snow and tourism, but because of Canada and people coming over shopping, and we have incredible architecture here, and we have started to build up our waterfront on Lake Erie over the last 6 or 7 years, and it's now really just incredible what's happened there. And we actually have a good mid-level size convention business and a great convention center team. So we do get a lot of tourism, and therefore, you know, our restaurants and bars and entertainment and things like that, and our retail stores around the county play a big role in our economy. So obviously, we've been uniquely positioned to be hurt by the pandemic because those are things you cannot do from home. So it's been a big impact here, and there's a lot of mom and pop restaurants, legacy, you know, type of restaurants that have been passed down, and stores that have been passed down and have been around for 30, 40 years that were having a significantly difficult time. About 10 months ago, when the pandemic hit here in New York, the county executive asked me to form the Erie County Business Task Force to deal with the economy in our businesses and the impacts that they were experiencing. And through that, we began to develop the Erie County Back to Business program, which included several different initiatives, one being a large grant program. So we wanted to get direct financial aid to businesses, and we did so with a $20 million grant program. But then another component where we saw it as reaching out to increase revenue and customers for businesses. And we did that through a buy local advertising campaign program, which we put a couple of $1 million behind with Visit Buffalo Niagara. And then Shop 716, which is what all of you are here to hear about, with a great partnership with AJ Baines and the Amherst Chamber of Commerce. It's one of our biggest chambers in Erie County, and Amherst is our biggest town population wise, which is just right outside the city of Buffalo. So, Yiftee coming along, I told Donna yesterday, we had this idea 6 months before we did it, and then we finally had the money to do it. And AJ and team told us about Yiftee, and it was just a perfect fit. So that's kind of our mission was for the program was to get customers to go back to these businesses and to visit places they had not been before, that are in their neighborhoods, in their community, that's not Amazon, that's not Target, that's not Walmart, to kind of get out of your normal cycles to help these businesses survive. So with that, I'll turn it over to AJ to kind of quickly talk about the program.
Sure. Thanks, Andy. As mentioned before, my name is AJ Baines. I'm president and CEO of the Amherst Chamber of Commerce, which sits just outside of the city of Buffalo here. And as Andy took you through some of the demographics of our county, our chamber is unique in the fact that we span 79 unique zip codes from here to basically Rochester, New York, which is about 60 miles away. As Andy mentioned, one of the things I think that gets lost is New York State was one of the states hit first and hardest with COVID-19. So we were dealing with a public health crisis back in early March. And really, until we were able to get our hands around it, it was, and still fighting it today, took us into late May, early June. So Andy and his team were really planting the seeds of putting together a back to business program, recognizing that from a regulatory standpoint, most of our businesses were shut down almost immediately by March 20th. Very few were regulated as businesses that were emergency businesses, businesses that had to operate. Our restaurants were closed. They went down to a takeout only model. Our retail, people were concerned about going out. We didn't know a lot about the virus and what was actually taking place. So from a chamber perspective, every day we were just trying to keep people calm, try to understand what was going on, and really just trying to make sure that everybody stayed afloat. While Andy and his team at the county exec's office were really planting those seeds for a back to business revival, I think everybody was trying to figure out when that date would take place and how would that work. They touched base on the fact that they ran a grant program for small businesses, but the gift card program was something that was always just kind of lingering out there, something that we were going to get to. And how Yiftee ended up on my radar was through other New York State program that they run with 43 North, who actually administered the grant program, which is a startup competition that is funded by the state of New York, based out of Buffalo, New York. And unfortunately for them, they were unable to run their startup competition this year due to COVID-19. So while they were working with their other startups, and looking for other tasks to take on and how they could help the small business community, we connected them with Andy and his team to run the grant program. And then for us, knowing about Yiftee, we kept mentioning, we know there's a virtual gift card out there. We know there's an electronic gift card out there. We think they're going to be able to handle it. And I will just say we were just blown away by the customer service and the ability to scale up quickly, as Donna's going to take us through some of the numbers.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so now you've met our panelists here. I'm going to grab the screen and show you some numbers We had a question a minute ago. Where's my numbers? There we go. On redemption rates. So here, hopefully you all can read this. And get a feel for the magnitude of the program. There's a quick description of exactly what the promotion was that each of these communities did, and the size of their bonus pool. So this is the bonus pool, as you heard from Mark in Boulder. His $118,000 was distributed in 6 days. So in that very quick amount of time, they generated this $253,000 that were then going towards the local shops and restaurants in Boulder. The next row is showing you how many gifts were purchased, including the bonus gifts. This is not a typo. It turns out to just be an amazing coincidence to have about the same number in these two different programs. Here we were asked on the chat, on the Q&A, to talk about redemption rates. So here are some numbers of total amount of the fund, of this total dollars that have been redeemed so far. And all of these programs had expiration dates at the end of the year for their bonus gifts. And this bottom line here is what % of the bonus money was redeemed. So you can see those are really high redemption rates on the bonus cards, because people knew it was use it or lose it. And so that's what's been, those are the numbers of the programs that you just heard about. I will open it up to the panel to provide some color commentary on this.
Sure, I'll go ahead and start from the Boulder perspective here. So the way we structured the program was the buy 25, get 25 limit 4. So it was a very generous offer. As you might imagine, most people did spend $100 to get their $100 in bonus. The reason we structured it like that was to try to get that quick cash infusion. So the idea that we were running up against the end of the year. As I mentioned, we're launching this after Thanksgiving, that we thought it was best to try to get the money spent, because we didn't really have a backup plan. We were either going to return the CARES Act dollars to the feds or we were going to spend that money. So that's why we erred on the side of caution and in terms of the size of the bonus. Jumping back to the setup a little bit, because we were under that time crunch. And again, this is a credit to Yiftee to work with us on a very tight timeline. We had interviews for potential contractors, I think it was November 5th, and we had a contract signed and we're up and running, ready to go by Small Business Saturday. So for everybody on the call that understands the normal pace of government, I think we've all bent over backwards to try to expedite those types of things during our COVID response and recovery. But if it weren't for our partnership with Yiftee, I'm not sure we would be able to get up and running that quickly. And part of what we did was have a vetting process where the city was kind of the intermediary between our merchants and Yiftee. So we were able to help answer questions, vet businesses, and I can talk a little bit more about that later, and essentially send that list of merchants to Yiftee to get up and running, and then make sure they were active on the website and so on and so forth. And so that was really the first part of the communication, was to get our merchants comfortable, aware of what steps they had to take to get into the program. And then the second phase was really that hard push out to the community. We used our partners, our local Convention Visitors Bureau, our chamber, our Downtown Boulder partnership were awesome in getting the word out. One of those operated a very similar program, and they were very gracious, knowing that of the importance of getting these dollars into the community, no matter how we did it. So through them, mostly social media, we did one print ad in our local paper, and that was enough to get that money spent quickly. And we reinforced through at least one press release and a number of different reminders, both to the merchants and to those who had purchased bonus bucks, that the dollars were expiring at the end of the year. And so we were very happy that we did not leave, our customers did not leave money on the table.
Derek or Sandy, you want to pick it up?
Hey, Derek, will you go?
I'm happy to. Um, the yeah, you can see for Whatcom County, we distributed about 51,000 in bonus funds. We probably had about a total of 250,000 for all of our marketing efforts, including that 51,000. The marketing was great. We had a lot of great partnership with tourism and our Main Street program in the city of Bellingham and the Chambers of Commerce, and social media picked it up quickly. I remember when COVID first hit, we had some really awesome folks who were on Facebook organizing people who wanted to buy gift cards from specific businesses, and that person would safely run around and buy up all these or gift cards for people and deliver it to their homes. There's a lot of effort, and really heartfelt, and it just goes to show how much people love our local businesses here. But this Yiftee platform is a gazillion times more efficient than than that effort. Yeah, so we've got tons of excitement building around a lot of referrals to friends and families, and businesses promoting Yiftee as well. We were a bit surprised that 16% of the bonus cards that expired on 12/31 didn't get spent, and we're currently, because we still have maybe a couple $100,000 in purchase gift cards still out there with people. We're trying to get people to spend the money now. I think in our community there are lots of folks who are buying individual store gift cards and just sitting on the gift cards because they wanted to get cash into the businesses. And so maybe there's a little bit of a misunderstanding that in the Yiftee program, just buying a Yiftee card doesn't get cash to the businesses. You got to go, make a transaction. And so we'd love to keep growing this program. So yeah, I'm really appreciative of all the economic development agencies in Whatcom County are pretty tight with one another. We know each other pretty well. We trust each other, and that enabled us to move really fast to get this whole campaign launched. And Donna, I think we're going to talk specifically about CARES Act funding in the next question.
Correct.
Yeah, so I'll wait on that.
Maybe before we move on, we could talk about how many businesses we had participate. So I don't know how many Boulder had, but I think we had about 236 participating merchants.
And we had about 110.
In Erie County, we are approaching 750.
But just for those of you who have smaller programs out there, the average number for Yiftee for a mature community that's been around for maybe 6 months or so is about 50. So don't let these overachievers intimidate you.
Yeah, and we had a lot of money, so let's be honest. And we have a big population. I mean, we almost at we're 920,000 in our county, and later on, because we're over 500,000 in population, we got an additional pot of CARES Act money, and we can talk about that. But that's why we had money to burn, so to speak, by the end of the year to help businesses. And it was the money for business programs was given to me and the task force around September, and told to kind of put together some programs. We launched a grant program first for obvious reasons. Super complicated, and getting grant money out the door and having to have the businesses spend it by December 30th. It was a big undertaking, but then the plan was to pivot off of that after the grant program launched in October to the buy local and to the shop 716. And that's what we did. And then we launched November 10th with the shop 716, just as the buy local had commercials had been running for a few weeks at that point. And as you can see, the way we structured ours with the help of Yiftee, because I had no idea what we were doing, never had done anything. I mean, the county, and I don't know how Sandy and Mark, I mean, we have never done anything like these programs. We've never had the money or this to do something at this scale. We've done smaller grant programs centered around federal funding that had a lot of restrictions on them. But this is something very new for Erie County. So we really relied on Yiftee, their expertise, and what other people were doing already. So, we started with a buy $25 gift card or a $50 gift card or a $100 gift card and get $25 free. And that's what we launched with for the first few weeks. And we had success. It took, a week for things to get rolling, but once it started to get rolling, we had pretty good momentum. But then, it was a big balancing act of, getting the money out the door, keeping the program running for as long as you've been telling people it's going to run for, and having people spend the cards by December 30th. So it was trying to kind of figure out the puzzle there on how best to make all that work. So we then added for Black Friday, right after Thanksgiving, for that weekend, a buy $50, give $50. And that really exploded. And the money was getting out the door very quickly. And as you could see, we allocated, around there 450,000 for the free cards and for the fees. And then we spent probably $150,000 on marketing. And we spent even more than that on marketing for the grant program, and then a couple of million on the buy local. And I can't just underscore enough how important the marketing was. We use a lot of the creative from the buy local campaign. So we were able to kind of just add the Shop 716 logos in there to make our own TV commercial. But I mean, we ran a TV commercial in the local pod for the Thanksgiving football games. And, we're running TV for several weeks, radio, paid social media, digital flags on websites and Pandora and all that. I mean, it was critical. And then using kind of an earned media strategy, the county executive, because it's COVID, and with the county, we're running the COVID health response. So he's having, at that time, 1 or 2 press conferences a week, being streamed on a couple of the local news channels on CBS and what we have here, Spectrum News and things like that, and then online. And, I would put slides in his deck about Shop 716 and go here. And and he would talk about how he bought a card and where he was going to spend it and things like that. So we were doing it from an organic kind of way too, and using the bully pulpit to get the word out. And as you can see, I mean, our goal was to get over $1 million out the door in new revenue for businesses, and we currently we're at 1.1 million. So we're super happy about that. And I don't know, AJ, I don't know if you want to kind of add in anything else there.
Yeah, just before we get into the funding aspect of how everybody secured their funding, I think one of the other parts of this program was simply when we were launching, we wanted to launch from kind of a diverse network of potential retail outlets and restaurants. And what we did from a chamber perspective was every day we were receiving a lot of inbound calls from different businesses that were just struggling. And this was our chance to then call them with something and say, hey, we have an opportunity for you here. You'll be amazed how it works like a credit card. So as soon as you took that fear out of them, a little bit of how easy the system was to navigate, we called our closest friends, our restaurants, our small retailers, and we tried to spread it throughout Erie County so that the day that we launched, we had over 50 merchants that were already listed on the website. So when we launched, we received a ton of earned media from local television and newspaper that really were driving people to the website. And once they got there, they could see that it was being populated almost by the hour as we were onboarding these new merchants. But the fact that we started with a base, and we were looking at some more popular places just because we wanted people to feel comfortable with the program. So that was a big target goal for us. And I think working with Yiftee to onboard these merchants and showing them how easy the transaction is from the 10 cent really sold it for them.
And I have to say, I could not have done this without the Amherst Chamber, and partnering with the Chamber and partnering with VBN provided the county with the expertise, with the connections, with the creative, with the earned media capabilities, having the public-private partnership kind of strength, even though I guess Chamber is, isn't exactly like a private business, but I mean, connected to all the private businesses, it has that public-private feel to it and partnership. We just wouldn't be able to do it without it. They were the ones that carried the water on the day-to-day of it, and had their businesses all lined up. And we had a corporate give back program where we asked some of the bigger employers to purchase cards and donate them to their employees, or to some of them to hospital workers and things like that. So it was just a great partnership. And I just suggest to any of the people out there who are either starting to run the program or already running it, if you're a municipality, connect to some of your economic development and business organizations to partner with.
So I think that that's a great lead in, and we have some questions in the Q&A. All the panelists can see them, so if you guys want to just kind of pick them up as you talk. The next topic is, how did you get the money, and what kind of restrictions were on it, and how did you manage around that? I think people know one of the restrictions was that the CARES Act funds had to be spent by the end of the year. And so with the program, bonus gifts can expire. The gifts that consumers buy cannot. So that's why you see some differences in how those have been redeemed. But I'll kick it over to the panel to talk about maybe AJ and Andy, you want to talk about where the funding came from?
Yeah, the funding came from the CARES Act stimulus. Since we are a county with a population over 500,000, we received a large pot of money that was, to a certain degree unencumbered. Did not have a lot of regulations and restrictions on it. Only that it needed to go to pay for the impacts of COVID-19 on the community. So that money for the first 6 or 7 months was used for tests and testing and hiring contact tracers and PPE and all of the essential, immediate things that you would imagine is needed on the local level to combat the pandemic. But then the money was available to do other types of programs. And we saw through the association, the National Association of Counties, there'd be a kind of a quarterly report that came out about what counties were doing with their CARES Act money. And we would see people are doing buy local programs. People are doing some kind of business promotion programs. And that's what we started to focus on and research about is, okay, we knew we wanted to do a grant program. Direct financial aid was really important. But what businesses and chambers of commerce kept telling me was, money to pay your bills are great, but what we really need are customers. What we really need is revenue. What we really need is people to come back to us. And so that was the focus of the second part of Back to Business, which was Shop 716 and the advertising campaign. So the funding came from the CARES Act. The restrictions on it were, minimal. I'm just looking at some of the notes my budget office gave me because it's not exactly my expertise. The parameters, as a county, we contracted with VBN, which is Visit Buffalo Niagara. They are, kind of the tourism and convention center, marketing and promotion arm of the county. So we had a contract directly with them where we gave them the CARES Act money we wanted spent on the buy local advertising and the Shop 716. Then they in turn contracted or dealt with the Amherst Chamber and were able to give them money, and were able to give other vendors money and buy the television and do the creative and all that stuff. So we had as far as a municipality is concerned, if there's people out there who are county or city or town governments, we were able to use the CARES Act federal stimulus money and contracted directly with an organization, and then kind of ensured within the language in that contract that the money needed to be spent, can only be spent these ways, given the federal regulations. And if it was not spent that way, if it was deemed later to not be spent correctly, that we would not be held accountable, but the organization would be held accountable. So that's kind of how it was structured. We did the same thing with the grant program. We contracted with the administrator of the grant program and gave them the money. We worked with them on the parameters of the grant program, and then they executed using the CARES Act money. It's the same way we did Shop 716. So the county's involved. We're providing, the leadership and partnership with how we want things to work and making decisions, but we basically passing the bucket of money off through a contract. And then we capped it at $50. Then we capped the free card at $50 on the advice from our budget office. We didn't want to go above that, the free card. We didn't want to go above $50. The federal government, with some of the kind of webinars they did on the CARES Act funding, indicated to us that the program we designed, we asked them, we designed this program, we think it's good, we know others are doing it. They said, great, go ahead and do it. We would just suggest not going above $50 in free gift cards to individuals. So that's what we did. We kept it $50 or under. Yeah, and the restrictions on that pot of money for being a community over 500,000 were pretty minimal, considering it was the federal government, but it was all centered around impacts from COVID-19.
So Sandy and Derek, you guys had different levels of bonuses, both in Boulder and Erie County, they were matches. Maybe you could talk about your funding and why you did it that way, and some of the reporting requirements that you had.
Yeah, very similar to Andrew's story. We were watching the health department, and we have good relationships in the county executive's office, as they were, finding their way through making the smartest investments they could using the CARES Act dollars. They were relatively flexible dollars, and eventually they got around to, after a lot of support for food security and rental assistance and all these things, they got around to opening up and collecting some ideas around business recovery. And it was I really admire our partners at the county, because they took some risks that were a little uncomfortable for them, because the last thing county government wants is a bad audit finding, right? And so it was a real gradual process for us to, over a period of a couple of months actually, to introduce ideas of doing business recovery marketing and how to safely support local businesses, and introducing the Yiftee card idea. At first, I started to get positive signals that they'd be open to, $150,000 contract for a broad promotion. And on the Yiftee card idea, they said, yeah, maybe we'll cover transaction costs, but we don't want to cover BOGO, the buy one, get one bonus card fees. And, we went out scrambling to say, well, first of all, thanks. That sounds promising. We'll get going on the broad marketing. And then we went out and bugged, folks in Erie County and others to say, how are you? And Mark from Boulder, how are you, feeling about the use of CARES Act money for the bonus cards? And I think somebody from Erie County said, I was on this National Association of County webinar, and I asked a Treasury Department person directly, is this an okay use of funds to fund bonus cards? And the answer from Treasury was yes. So I used that as much as I could, and eventually did get a $40,000 contract for bonus cards, added to the 10 for transaction fees in the beginning. I didn't actually get any signed contracts from the county until mid-December, which was pretty stressful because we had committed $250,000 to the contractors who were doing the promotion, put a ton of our own staff costs into the campaign, and sent money to Yiftee to, launch the card on November 24th. So it was pretty stressful. I just kept spending a little bit more here and there as my confidence started to build that the county would come through on contracts. And ultimately, by mid-December, all the contracts were signed. And I was feeling very grateful that for our relationship with the community foundation here, who kept cheering us on and saying, if the county can't pull through for you, we'll back you. And so that relieved a little bit of the risk. At the same time, I didn't want to have to go to the community foundation and pull $250,000 that could otherwise be funding other great programs in the community. So anyway, everyone incrementally got comfortable with the idea and eventually, took some small risks. Some of the restrictions or the concerns that county had were, they were curious about whether or not the bonus cards, would get spent, or, well, first of all, that the bonus cards were tied to a purchase. There's a really strong gifting of public funds law in Washington State that doesn't allow tax dollars to go, to private parties. So, for example, on our economic development efforts, we can't provide financial incentives to lure companies to Washington State because of the strict interpretation of gifting of public funds. And so there's a little bit of concern for that, but eventually they realized, or admitted that these are federal dollars, and we're just going to apply that restriction in a different way for these federal dollars. So they got comfortable with that. Yiftee's reporting is outstanding. And so we were able to show in our reports that every time somebody purchases a card, a millisecond later, here's the transaction of the bonus card that was distributed. So they were impressed by the reporting capacity. And then I think the final concern that they had was, are these bonus cards getting spent with the businesses that need the help the most? And we were able to show, right away, like the first 150 businesses that listed were businesses in the key industries that we knew were getting hit hardest. And then we were prepared to, see the results in early January. And if there were some bonus card spending with retailers that weren't in the target industries, we would just eat those costs if the county wouldn't reimburse them. But so far, all the bonus card spending went to the real businesses that we all know have been significantly impacted. And so I think in the end, we haven't received any questions really from our invoices and requests for reimbursement. Some of the invoices have been paid. I imagine the rest of the invoices will get paid. So it all worked out in the end.
I hope so. I hope so, Derek, that they pay your invoices. Mark, you want to tell us the view from Boulder?
Sure. I'd say we had our finance folks and the county administered our program and then distributed the funds to the city. It was a bit more conservative in how we were looking at some of the language in the CARES Act. So just keep that in mind as I'm explaining how we structured this. It was part of the purpose is to try to meet some of what others were telling us their concerns are with a gift card program. So to start with, we did a competitive RFP where we put some general parameters of what we wanted in the gift card program, but left enough flexibility that we could interview what ended up being 3 different firms, including Yiftee, to basically give us a demo and explain to us how the program would work and how fast it could get up and running. And so a couple of things that we were looking for in that process, one is the ability to get up and running quickly. Customer service aspect was very important to us, but just how intuitive it was. And I think having it be a virtual MasterCard was probably the clincher to say, okay, this from a customer experience standpoint, from a merchant standpoint, this is going to be the most intuitive. And that, obviously went very well for us to get up and running that quickly. That helped us get a contract where we could deal with the nuances beyond what was in the RFP. The extra step that we did is to have the city ourselves vet businesses to be a part of the program. So part of that was CARES. So we felt like, or I should say others felt like we needed to actually draw the line between CARES Act dollars and COVID impacted businesses, and that the onus was on us, since we would be requesting reimbursement for the program, to demonstrate that those businesses had COVID impact. So in our vetting, we had a very simple form that just said, basically attest to the fact that you've had COVID related revenue impact. And that was one of the main criteria. And then others were more political than they were CARES restrictions. We excluded restaurants specifically because we had another program that covered restaurants. And so we were really focused on our smaller retail, locally owned. Again, this was not a CARES Act restriction, but something that we chose to do locally. So we took that list of our vetted merchants, gave it over to Yiftee, and they were included into the program. So we feel pretty confident in how our dollars will be reimbursed, given that we're able to draw that line pretty clearly between the dollars that came to the city and ultimately the dollars that went to individual businesses. I don't think you have to set it up like that. I know there was one comment about how to do something a little bit more regionally, and we had some interest from other cities around us that didn't end up getting there in time for CARES. But in the event of another round of funding, we're able to use cooperative bidding. I don't know if others are. So given that there's RFPs out there now, like ours, we've encouraged other cities just to basically tack on and use that to say, we've done the vetting already, and we have a program up and running with a valid contract that meets the CARES criteria. So anyway, I think that's a good way to go, just to cover your bases. But once you have that contract in place, you have a lot of flexibility in how you structure the program and make sure you're adhering to whatever the next round of funding might look like.
So there are a few questions in the Q&A about CARES Act funding. I think officially CARES Act is finished, but my guess is we'll see some other types of federal funding programs from the new administration. So that was part of the motivation to do this, to share what we learned with the last go around. Okay, so to kind of, I know you had this on your calendar until for another 3 minutes or so. So we're going to do our speed round with 1 minute or less, maybe even 30 seconds of one thing that you learned that you would recommend or you would do differently or you would do again. I'll leave it up to the panelists to decide how you want to spend your 30 to 60 seconds. So that is the last question. And who wants to go first?
I'll go first. So one of the things that I think we would use better or train the merchants on is the special offers. The opportunity to take advantage of special offers that the merchants might have in addition to the gift cards.
Okay. Going straight
Oh,
down my
just
screen,
quick-
Mark. Oh, go ahead, Derek.
Oh, I'd just say, I sure wish we had confidence in funding earlier so that we had more time. It just resulted in a lot of evening weekends, just stressing my staff so much at a time that's already so stressful.
Okay.
Say that ours would probably be to change the denomination from 25, given the limit 4. Everything was pretty intuitive, and given the volume, we didn't have a whole lot of confusion, which is great. The confusion we did have, or the frustration we did have, was just that if somebody comes with $100 and they have 4 $25 gift cards, and they bought another gift card, then they're doing 5 individual card transactions at the point of sale. So I think just for the ease, especially for the merchant, some of them redeemed thousands and thousands of dollars at some of our more popular stores. And so if they have a line of 4 or 5 people, especially given COVID, I think we would have made that adjustment. But for the most part, and especially from the customer service standpoint, we had a number of inquiries at first, given the volume in 6 days. And I think it speaks volumes to how, we didn't receive many complaints, given that they would definitely come to the city if they did over the course of our program.
Okay.
I would say from our perspective here in Erie County, one of the challenges that we ran into as the program started to pick up some real serious steam was ensuring that the merchants informed their staff from a training perspective that they were accepting this card. I think that was one of the hiccups you'd run into. Somebody would call and say, well, they're not taking it, and I see it on the website, and maybe the owner signed up the night before but didn't inform the person who was opening the shop at 10 a.m. So early on, we were able to touch base and make sure that these merchants and proprietors were reaching out to their staff and really onboarding everybody. But then as you're getting 20 and 30 merchants signing up in an hour, it was tough to just touch base with everybody and make sure that they inform their entire staff.
All right. And Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, I instead of focusing on what we would do differently, I'll share what I thought we did really well and what I think is key, and that's marketing. I think it's crucial to not just selling the cards, but I saw a question I tried to answer on the Q&A about how to sign up merchants and partnering with chambers of commerce. Absolutely, partnering with chambers of commerce and your economic development organizations, and getting the word out online and social media. But also, I mean, part of the money we spent on marketing and part of the time the county executive spent on TV was asking businesses to sign up, not just asking people to buy cards. And so it was a dual push. I guess in a perfect world, we would have had more time. We would have gotten a bunch of merchants signed up before we launched, and then we would launch. And, but I mean, honestly, the way it went, worked out really well anyways. And it was because of the marketing and the partnerships that we use, and obviously the money we had. But I mean, if you have the money to spend, using a piece of that money for the marketing, I know you want to put all the money into the free cards or something like that. And you I was always like, I shouldn't use too much money on the marketing, but honestly, it goes such a long way to making your program successful.
Wow. So I would say, so a couple big themes. We're at our time now, so I'm gonna wrap this up, but a couple big things. Yeah, thank you all for the hard work on the marketing, as well as getting your merchants on board and training the merchants and communicating and all that. But also what has come through really strong to me is the partnering and collaboration with the different groups across in all of your towns, whether it was the city, the chamber, the tourist office, the Main Street associations, downtown associations. This community, that you are all in, not just panelists, all of you, is the most collaborative group I've ever seen or had the privilege of working with in my career. And that's what's making it all work, really. So there are tons of questions we didn't really get to, but I don't want to keep people beyond what we committed. So we will share the links to all of the community card pages for these communities. And this has been recorded, so you can share it with your colleagues if you're interested. And we'll go through the Q&A and get answers to everybody. We'll just make up a one page or something, send it out so that you all get follow up on that and get answers to your questions. And I especially want to thank our panelists for taking their time from their amazingly busy schedules and helping us share this information. This is, we're all learning so fast as we're doing this, and I appreciate the patience with the glitches we've had, but I also feel like this is an opportunity to celebrate some pretty darn amazing accomplishments, not just among the panelists, but among all of you out there. Contributing 13.6 million towards small business last year, and I can't wait to see what we do here in 2021 as things open up for businesses and people can dine outside again and shop to their heart's content. So appreciate everyone coming, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Donna.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.